Priest is devastating the Street Profits right now.
Heaven. There goes Dawkins.
Country star Dwight Yoakam, who you everything but rap and country types may know as... Have you seen Terminator 2? The part where Terminator beats up all those bikers? That's a Dwight Yoakam song on the jukebox. Anyway, Dwight Yoakam made this Western movie back in 2000 called South of Heaven, West of Hell. You might expect this to be a vanity project, especially since almost every female character in the movie is completely in love with Dwight, key among them being Bridget Fonda.
You ever been to San Francisco, Val?
But as far as I know, the part was meant for Vincent Gallo, and Dwight never intended to star in it, or direct it, or compose the soundtrack. As I understand it, he was producing this film as a flagship project for his production studio, but a financier pulled out at the last minute. This left Dwight selling his home in Malibu and going into debt to finance it. Then he got sued for union violations, and he had to lay off his touring band for cheaper talent. And then it was released to some of the most uncharitable reviews I've ever read. Michael Dakina of FilmThreat.com called it a
shit sandwich.
Where'd they print that? Where'd they print that? That's not real, is it? You can't print that.
The movie cost about $4 million to make and earned less than $30,000 globally. And the worst of it is, it hasn't even become a cult classic, or even an almost cult classic. Shout out Hats Off Entertainment, not Hats Off Media, who I have nothing against, I just haven't watched many of his videos, and that's not to whom I'm referring right now. Nobody likes this movie, and it ruined Dwight Yoakam's life, but it's one of the funniest westerns I've ever seen. And it features my all-time favorite penis mangling. You bitch! No! I mean, it's not just a penis mangling scene. It's a whole little subplot about this guy's dick and balls getting sliced to ribbons and stitched back together. And then he takes an elbow to what's left of it, and... That has to be like stubbing your toe, but 2 or 3 times as bad, right? It's up there with Tarantino's best. By the way, check out this video I made a while back on Tarantino's long history of penis manglings. I think the movie's reception is evidence that you get what you expect to get from a film.
It stinks. It stinks.
Yes, Mr. Sherman, everything stinks.
If you go in expecting a Dwight Yoakam black tank top vanity project, you're going to see the humor as unintentional and the conflicting tones as disjointed. The same awkwardness that you would praise in a David Lynch or Coen Brothers film, you're going to condemn when it comes from a director that you don't feel obligated to like. Reviewers have complained that the movie is too episodic, like Oh Brother Where Art Thou, Taxi Driver, Pulp Fiction, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Fire Walk With Me, and tonally inconsistent, like Oh Brother Where Art Thou, Taxi Driver, Pulp Fiction, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Fire Walk With Me. These are movies that can go from funny to tragic to frightening to uncomfortable and back to funny all in a matter of seconds. And when an acknowledged genius does this, it's masterful. But when a country star directing his first movie does it, it can only possibly be an unfortunate accident, right?
The guys at Spectrum think I'm just some dumb hick. They said that to me at a dinner.
To show what I mean about expectation, take this shitty but disturbing Newgrounds cartoon animated by Jameson, Montana school shooter Jeffrey Carriall. Psych, that was Dumbland by David Lynch, you fucking idiot. There's no such guy as Jeff Carriall. That's not even a real last name. I made it up. More than a few experiments have been conducted showing the world's leading wine experts to be easily tricked into praising $5 bottles from Walmart if you put a fancy label on it. I think the exact same principle applies to movies.
I got it. That's the guy from Big. Tom Hanks. That's it. Ah, funny guy, Tom Hanks. Everything he says is a stitch.
I have AIDS.
We don't want to be caught disliking what we're supposed to like or liking what we're not supposed to like.
Up until that point, the relationship between De Niro and Sybil Shepherd has been electric. But that mood isn't going to last. This picture is going to rub our noses in violence like few films ever have.
Anyway, I'm not here to shit on critics. I'm here to gush about Dwight Yoakam's first and last directorial effort. The movie opens with these folks in an old-timey moving picture house watching what is incorrectly regarded to be the first Western film ever made. Goodfellas. When Joe Pesci draws his gun on the audience at the end, this drunk pulls his in kind and pops a few bullets into the screen. I think this is a really great establishing scene. Right away we get the movie's comic tone, the time and place, and the sense that the glory days of the West are in the past, but not that far in the past. That is, ghosts from the old days can still come back to haunt you. We find out early on that Dwight Yoakam is a U.S. Marshal who used to run with a pretty nasty gang of outlaws. They roll through town and Yoakam has a chat with their boss, played by seasoned character actor Luke Askew, a Western veteran who has a long list of bit parts in movies like Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, and a lead role in the oddball spaghetti western Night of the Serpent.
Oh, where you are, or I kill the niño.
The two speak rather ambiguously, that is, unincriminatingly, about why they're passing through town, and the old man tries to talk Dwight into riding with them for the afternoon to catch up.
Ride with us just a little ways, we could catch up a bit.
Well, you caught me at a bad time, Leland. With Christmas tomorrow.
Right away, this feels like a setup to kill the marshal, but when the boss makes no effort to kill him during the savage bank robbery shortly thereafter, we get the impression that this guy sincerely regards the boys as his sons, his true family, even those who've strayed, and his intention was simply to get Dwight out of harm's way. The pragmatic brutality of the bank robbery sets the tone for the action going forward. The Henry Gang, that's what these guys are called, have a very to-the-point approach to grabbing the cash and making a dash. Some of the gang's members are individually sadistic and cruel, but as a whole, their violence is simply the quickest way to get from point A to point B. The first half of the movie is mostly comprised of loosely connected episodic sequences. It almost feels like a Western sketch comedy show. My favorite is when the government man, played by Bud Cort, goes to hassle a member of the Henry Gang in his... It's not really a cell, it's like a shack where they keep their worst prisoners, I guess. This dude is played by horror veteran Joe Unger, and this cast is packed top to bottom with iconic character actors, so I'm not going to go over every single one, but to mention a few, you got Billy Bob Thornton as a fancy talking ghost. He's hanging out with, of all people, Warren Zevon. Peter Fonda as Shoshone Bill, the proprietor of a traveling Wild West show. Bo Hopkins as Doc. Vince Vaughn as second-in-command Taylor Henry. And of course, Pee Wee Herman as probably the most detestable baddie in the whole movie. We'll get to him in just a minute. First, I want to show you what makes this scene so funny.
Hey, don't.
I'm sorry.
Not there.
I beg your pardon?
Oh! That's the shithole. Hey, don't sling that around, goddammit! I'll knock the fuck out of
Fleeing
you.
shit all over the
Now
place.
just stand the fuck still.
These scenes familiarize us with the key players, and they establish the world of the movie. It's basically an hour-long first act. You can call that meandering or pointless, but I love it. We get to know Dwight Yoakam's character and find that, ladies' man or not, he's kind of awkward and out of step in social settings. If you don't cast yourself as a multi-talented badass in your vanity project, you're probably going to cast yourself as a lovably awkward Charlie Chaplin type. Dwight Yoakam is simply awkward. For a guy who's getting laid left and right, he's got a bit of Travis Bickle in him. Telling jokes that don't land and interrupting people in the middle of emotional breakdowns to ask where he can keep his horses.
Mr. Dumfries, I've got some horses we need to board with you.
To my understanding, this is fairly accurate as far as frontiersmen go. Cowboys and marshals and rangers spent all their time out in the wild, forgetting how to interact with people.
I've had better days, that's for sure.
Ah, well.
But I look at you and I know things can always be worse.
Anyway, the movie takes a hard turn into a more linear narrative right around the halfway point. This is one of those scenes a lot of westerns have where the movie's most disgusting villain just bullies everyone for a while. In this case, it's Pee Wee, who, in a movie full of funny side characters, plays probably the least amusing guy in the film. When the low-ranking members of the gang are trusted to stand watch, we get to see how they behave with no oversight. And they immediately start arguing about who gets to rape who. But
I can just watch you be with her, Arvid.
Bridget Fonda is no pushover, and this is when we get my favorite ball mangling of all time. All the most unsettling stuff here is kept brief, which is good because this is the type of scene that could get very uncomfortable and sour the whole movie. Like in The Untold Story, which I'd describe as Texas Chainsaw if it took place in a Chinese restaurant. This is a movie I wanted to love with its darkly comic slapstick violence and balance of wacky and nightmarish tones, but There are these SA scenes that just go on and kind of suck all the fun out of the murder and cannibalism and police brutality we've all been enjoying. Anywho, from this point on, the movie is a fairly straightforward chase through the desert to the bad guy's hideout, where the boss tries his best to settle things peacefully, and that's a neat twist. These Dutch Vanderlyn type characters, whatever they might say, they're always willing to sell their soldiers out to save their own skin. But Leland Henry won't even entertain the idea of shooting Dwight Yoakam and saving himself a heap of trouble.
I don't really concern myself one way or the other with whatever the hell he has to do.
Well, you best concern yourself with what I have to do because of you, boy. Now I have to calm him from wanting to take us to jail and see through some kind of trial.
We find out here that Yoakam is listed as having died in Cuba, and the movie does this clever thing where we've had hints that he might be a ghost, but even up until the end, no concrete evidence. It reminds me of Clint Eastwood's ghost stories, Pale Rider and High Plains Drifter, and another Vince Vaughn film, Brawl in Cell Block 99, where Vaughn is possessed of inexplicable superhuman strength, like a white hat Michael Myers, and seemingly tasked with a mission to exact divine punishment on men who've escaped God's wrath. But there's no finale if the bad guy isn't willing to shoot you, so Vince Vaughn takes over, and this leads into a spectacular climax with dynamite getting thrown around, a Gatling gun chewing the scenery apart, shotties to the chest. It's like a Red Dead 2 mission culminating in some Wile E. Coyote shit with a load of dynamite in Vince Vaughn's boot. And that's the movie. I love this film, and it deserves to be a cult classic. It's on Tubi, free with ads right now. As a director, Dwight Yoakam has a specific, confident voice. He likes wide shots and slow burn humor. He has a surgical, detached approach to violence that makes it hit that much harder, and he doesn't mind letting a scene play out at a slower pace. Had he kept going, Dwight might have been the American Takeshi Kitano, but after this movie turned out to be such a costly failure on a professional and a personal level, it's no surprise Dwight never wanted to get behind a camera again. Here's another Western I love starring a one-time director and focusing on a surrogate father-son conflict. One-Eyed Jacks with Marlon Brando. This time it's the son who's an outlaw and the father who's gone straight. One-Eyed Jacks indulges in a lot of the martyr tropes you expect of a self-directed film from an established leading man. It's funny, you hand a Las Vegas real estate developer a camera and he wants to be Mel Gibson. You hand Mel Gibson a camera and he wants to be James Dean. Cry out. Mercy. Tommy Lee Jones is a really good director too. The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada is like the best adaptation of a story that Cormac McCarthy didn't actually write. And The Sunset Limited is a really good adaptation of a story Cormac McCarthy did write. And here's how I'm going to trick you into watching that one. Samuel L. Jackson plays a man who is deeply concerned with God putting him where he needs to be, like he was talking about in Pulp Fiction. So you can go ahead and take that and spin it into a clickbaity fan theory. That one's on me. Anyway, I figure 300 million of us, that's everyone in America, watch this movie on Tubi. That might be enough ad revenue for Dwight Yoakam to recoup his losses and get his old touring band back together.
Did you stand by me? No, not at all.
We're making an animated Western movie. Click subscribe and join the mailing list in the pinned comments for updates.